Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very good afternoon, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fuli Batibo, Senior News Anchor at Al Jazeera English. It is my privilege to guide you through this special session on education as the foundation of the new social contract. 30 years after the first World Summit for Social Development, we meet in Doha at a time of both extraordinary transformation and profound inequality. Education sits at the heart of this moment. It is the bridge between poverty and opportunity, exclusion and inclusion, stagnation and progress. This session will explore how education, which cuts across all three pillars of social development, can be reimagined to drive social justice, decent work for all, and inclusion in an age defined by digital transformation and artificial intelligence. We will hear from visionary leaders who have championed education as the cornerstone of sustainable development. And we will reflect on how the Doha Political Declaration can be translated into bold, practical action. It is my distinct honor to introduce our first keynote speaker. She is a longtime advocate for education, research, health, and opportunities for young people. A United Nations Sustainable Development Goals advocate, she campaigned for the establishment of the UN International Day to protect education from attack. Please welcome to the stage Her Highness Sheikha Moussa bint Nasser, UNSDG advocate, founder and chair of the Qatar Foundation and the Education Above All Foundation.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحضور الكريم، مرحبا بكم. يسرني أن أشارككم هذا الاجتماع بمناسبة انعقاد القمة العالمية الثانية للتنمية الاجتماعية بالدوحة. اليوم يلتئم شمل الأسرة الدولية من أجل استشراف غد مشرق يجعل من رفاهة الإنسان غاية، حيث تكون العدالة الاجتماعية ميزاناً للتنمية والكرامة الإنسانية بوصلة للسياسة، كي نخرج من ضجيج الوعود الحالمة إلى سجل الإنجازات الواقعية. بعد 30 عاماً من قمة كوبنهاجن، نجتمع اليوم في جلسة من جلسات قمة الدوحة تحمل عنوان التعليم أساس للعقد الاجتماعي الجديد. إن القمة المنعقدة من أجل مقاربة ملف التنمية الاجتماعية تكتسب أهمية إضافية وتنامية في عالم تتعاظم فيه التحولات الديمغرافية، وتتفاقم الفجوات الاجتماعية، وتتسارع التطورات التكنولوجية، وبالتالي تشتد وطأة الأزمات التي تعصف بالتعليم. وأؤكد لكم أن مبادئ إعلان وبرنامج عمل كوبنهاجن بشأن الحاجة إلى جعل الناس محور التنمية لم تفقد صلاحيتها، وإنما استجدت تحديات خصوصاً على الساحة التعليمية ضاعفت الحاجة إلى تجديد العزم لتفعيلها على أرض الواقع. السيدات والسادة، لا أريد أن أتحدث في البديهيات وما تعرفونه وما يعرف الجميع، ولكنني أعتقد أن علينا ألا نهرب أو نتهرب من الأسئلة الجوهرية، لأن الإجادة في صياغة السؤال تؤهلنا للعثور على الجواب الصائب. وإذا ما تساءلنا عن إمكانية إيجاد حلول مستدامة لقضايا التنمية الاجتماعية في العالم، وخصوصاً في البلدان النامية، فإنني أعتقد أن الإمكانية متاحة إذا شئنا، ومعدومة إذا اخترنا التغاضي وعدم الاكتراث. وكيف للتنمية الاجتماعية أن تؤتي ثمارها دون إرساء دعائم عدالة شاملة تصحح مسارات الخلل وتقوم مواطن الزلل؟ كيف؟ فلا تنمية مع تمييز، ولا استقرار مع تهميش، ولا ازدهار مع إقصاء. والحال هذه يجب أن لا يتصالح العالم مع حقيقة أن هناك 272 مليون طفل خارج المدارس بحسب إحصائية اليونسكو لعام 2023. ولكم أن تتخيلوا كم زاد هذا العدد خلال العامين الماضيين جراء الصراعات الدموية القائمة في أكثر من بقعة في العالم. فهذه الإحصاءات المفجعة والأرقام الموجعة تحمل في طياتها رسائل ناطقة تستنجد بالضمير الإنساني وتستوجب التحرك الفوري نحو ترجمة السياسات والقرارات إلى أفعال ومنجزات. فالتنمية الاجتماعية أيها السادة ليست مصفوفة جامدة ولا عبارات زائفة، ولا هي بهرج إعلامي أو استعراض أجوف لواقع غائب، بل هي حكاية إنسان ينهض بمجتمعه حين يجد من ينصفه، ويصنع المعجزة حين تتاح له فرصة للإبداع. وللإنسان العربي ألف حكاية وحكاية، دعوني أسرد عليكم واحدة منها. فالعربي الذي نشأ في محيطه وترعرع على قيمه وحلم بأن يكون يوماً ما مواطن مؤثراً فاعلاً في حركة تنمية وطنه الأكبر، ما يلبث أن يصطدم بحاجز تلو آخر، وفي محاولاته المتكررة واليائسة من أجل تجاوزها يقرر أن يبحث عن وطن آخر يحتضن حلمه ويحقق آماله. ذلك هو طلب للخلاص الفردي بعدما استعصى تحقيق الأحلام. هناك في الوطن البديل تبدأ رحلة الإبداع والتميز. أما وطننا العربي الأكبر سيبقى في وضعية تدحرج إلى الوراء لحين الاهتداء إلى معادلة التنمية الأصح التي تجعل الإنسان مبتداها وغايتها. حضور الكريم، إننا نتحدث كثيراً عن التنمية، لكن أيضاً كثيراً ما نعزف عن الأخذ بعناصرها الحقيقية، وأبرز هذه العناصر هو الإنسان ذاته الذي يشكل جوهر التنمية ومقصدها الأسمى. وإذا كان الإنسان أثمن رأس مال، فإن التعليم يظل رأس المال الأبقى، فهو المنبع الذي تتفرع منه روافد التقدم والأساس الذي تشاد عليه صروح التنمية المستدامة. فالتعليم ليس قطاعاً من قطاعات المنظومة المجتمعية، بل هو القطاعات كلها مجتمعة، فلا اقتصاد ولا سياسة ولا صحة ولا ثقافة ولا حتى بيئة مستدامة بلا تعليم. إذا ما عجزنا عن تطوير التعليم تطويراً مبتكراً ومستداماً بما يواكب التحولات المتسارعة في عالم التكنولوجيا وأدواتها، فلن يكتب النجاح لأي مشروع تنموي اقتصادياً كان أو ثقافياً أو اجتماعياً، وسندور في دوامة الفشل والتراجع والعجز. لن يكون لنا مكان في خريطة السباق التنموي. وبقدر ما نراهن على الاستثمار في التعليم نكون قادرين على تحسين مستقبل الإنسان، وبقدر ما نغفل عن أهمية التعليم والاستثمار فيه سنفقد البوصلة نحو الآفاق المفتوحة على أسباب التقدم. وإني لعلى يقين راسخ بأن النجاح في تحقيق التنمية المستدامة ليس حكراً على من يملك الموارد الأوفر فحسب، بل على من يحسن إدارتها واستثمارها. وهذه هي الرؤية التي دفعتنا في قطر إلى تأسيس مسار تنموي يضع الشباب في مكانهم الطبيعي في صياغة المستقبل، متعلمين ومبتكرين ورواد أعمال ومواطنين مشاركين في صنع القرار. وقد أثمرت تلك الرؤية الملهمة عن نجاحات مبهرة تجلت في استثمار الدولة لمواردها الطبيعية وتأهيل طاقاتها البشرية واستحداث فرص عمل مواتية بدلاً من استنساخ وظائف تقليدية. وانطلاقاً من إيمانها الراسخ بتكامل أهداف التنمية المستدامة وترابطها، لم تدخر قطر جهداً في إرساء دعائم السلام وركائز الدبلوماسية وجعلها في صدارة أهدافها للتنمية الاجتماعية. الحضور الكريم، ثمة حكاية أخرى لطفلة سلبها المحتل أجمل لعبها، اللعبة الأقرب لقلبها، قلمها. ذلك القلم التي كانت ترى فيه مفتاح مستقبلها وسلاحها الصغير في وجه الظلم والحرمان. سرق القلم، لكن الحلم لم يسرق، وظل الأمل شعلة تضيء في قلبها الصغير. جمعت رماد ما حولها من ركام وصنعت منه قلماً، ونصبت خيمة من قماش بالل لتكون لها ولرفيقاتها مدرسة تعلمهم أن الحروف لا تهزم، وأن الكتابة قد تولد من بين الركام، بشارة بالحياة ومقاومة للمحو. وحين توقف إطلاق النار في غزة، كانت تلك الطفلة ومن معها في مقدمة الأطفال الذين هرعوا بأقلامهم وأوراقهم الممزقة إلى قاعة الامتحان، بالرغم من أن أكثر من 90% من مدارس غزة دمرت كلياً أو أصبحت غير قابلة للاستخدام. أدرك هؤلاء الأطفال بفطرتهم أن التعليم ليس حاجة كمالية، بل ضرورة للبقاء وطوق نجاة إلى مرفأ آمن، بعيداً عن الخوف والجهل والضياع ومحاولة إفنائهم. إن التعليم هو الركيزة الأولى للتنمية، فلا تنمية بلا عقل مستنير، ولا نهضة، فلا تنمية بلا معرفة، ولا نهضة بلا عقل مستنير. فالتعليم ليس ترفاً ولا امتيازاً ولا منة، بل هو حق ومسؤولية وأداة لتحرير العقل وبناء الكفاءات وصون القيم وتوليد الأفكار التي تغير وجه العالم. والتعليم قبل كل شيء قضية وجود وبقاء أمة أو فناؤها. فالتنمية الحقيقية المستدامة التي نريدها يجب أن يكون التعليم صنواً لها لا يتخلف عنها أبداً. فلنبدأ من المدرسة والجامعة والمختبر والمكتبة، فهناك تصنع العقول التي تبني الأوطان، وهناك يكتب المستقبل الذي يغني عن المنافي والأوطان البديلة، ولا يسلب فيه قلم من يد طفلة حالمة بالسلام. السيدات والسادة، إنها حكايات أوطاننا العربية التي تتفاوت في نشدانها الصلة الأمثل مع المستقبل، تنهض في مكان وتتعثر في آخر، وهي تشبه حكايات أخرى في أوطان أخرى. تتشابه الحكايات وتتشابه الأوطان، وتتشابه الأوطان في سيرها على مضمار التنمية الاجتماعية. وحظ الدول من هذا المطلب يتفاوت بمقدار تفاوتها في الإمساك بجوهر العملية التنموية، باعتبارها وصفة بين الأحلام والطاقات البشرية والاستخدام الأمثل للموارد الطبيعية. أما مبتغاه الأسمى فنهوض بالإنسان بحقق حاجاته المادية والروحية بأتم ما يكون التحقيق. ذلك سعي متصل لا ينقطع، فمن فك الإنسان يطلب من في تراب وطنه ما لا يطلبه في غيره، طمأنينة في الانتماء ومشروعية في الحلم، حلم المستقبل المنفتح على إمكانيات لا نهاية لها، كما تشير إلى ذلك بحق التجربة الإنسانية من بدائية الكهف إلى اكتشاف مجاهيل الفضاء، ومن ظلام الجهالات إلى نور العلم. دعونا نحلم بالحلم الأجمل، الحلم المشترك، الحلم الذي لا يستثني أحداً، حلم التنمية. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Your Highness, for your inspiring vision on how education must anchor our global social contract. Thank you for your unwavering commitment to the empowerment of all through education. It is now my great privilege to invite His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, to deliver his keynote address. Under his leadership, the United Nations has placed education and social justice at the center of the 2030 Agenda, calling for a renewed global social contract grounded in solidarity, sustainability, and inclusion. Your Excellency, Secretary General.
Your Highness Sheikh Moza, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by thanking Qatar, and in particular Sheikh Moza, which has long been a strong and generous champion of education and the urgent need to accelerate progress on Sustainable Development Goal 4. I appreciate the opportunity to shine a spotlight on this vital issue today. Education is the foundation of social progress. It is the engine of decent work and prosperity. It forges lasting pathways to inclusion and equality, especially for women and girls. And education is the best poverty-fighting tool we have. In short, education is the foundation of a renewed social contract, anchored in human rights, social justice, and inclusion. But the cracks in this vital foundation are becoming too large to ignore, and relentless pressures are making the gaps wider. The pressure of widening inequalities within and among nations, the pressure of a polarized and divided world where solidarity and solutions are in short supply, and the financial pressure of governments and global financial institutions unable to provide the level of support required to fund education systems that can reach every learner in developing countries. Despite progress, 272 million children and youth remain out of school, most of them in the world's poorest countries, with millions more in conflict zones. Even for those in classrooms, learning outcomes are falling, with reading proficiency declining for both primary and secondary students since the COVID-19 pandemic. Too many children leave school without the skills they need. Millions of learners lack access to digital tools, and girls in the poorest countries are least likely to attend upper secondary education. We face a dramatic teacher shortage, an estimated 44 million worldwide. And education can be an engine of transformation for societies and economies, but only if we can repair the cracks in this vital foundation and strengthen education systems for the future. I see 4 areas of urgent repair. First, we must repair the financing gap, which has swelled to $97 billion annually. Education is not a cost to be contained. It's a strategic and necessary investment in every society's future. Governments must dedicate a minimum of 15% of domestic revenue and 4% of gross domestic product to education. And developing countries must get the support they need to make these investments. This includes tripling the lending power of multilateral development banks, leveraging private finance, easing debt burdens, and reforming global financial institutions so they better meet the needs of developing countries that must have a much stronger representation in the boards of the financial institutions. Second, we must repair the access gap. From students in war zones and disaster areas, to migrants and refugees, to those living in poor and underserved communities, to girls and persons with disabilities, too many are denied their right to education. We must scale up investments in programs, infrastructure and technology that can reach every child with the learning and skills they need and deserve. This must include closing the gender gap once and for all. Education can be the great equalizer and support human rights and social justice for all, but only if we ensure no one is left behind. Third, we must repair the teacher gap. Teachers are on the front lines of education, but millions lack the support, tools and training they need to deliver inclusive and quality learning. Following the Transforming Education Summit, the high-level panel on the teaching profession developed concrete recommendations to ensure that every learner has access to a professionally trained, qualified, and well-supported teacher. I call on all countries, teachers' unions, and partners to help bring these recommendations to life in classrooms around the world. Finally, we must repair the quality gap. This means strengthening the foundation of learning, reading, writing, math, and science. But quality education must go further, including critical thinking and problem solving, so students learn how to learn. It must reconfigure education systems so people can learn throughout their lives. It must include skilling and reskilling and upskilling so people can contribute to the fast-growing digital and green economies. It must include entrepreneurial skills, and it must safely harness digital technology, including artificial intelligence. Not to replace teachers, but to empower them. Not to profit a few, but to benefit all. UNESCO has developed key recommendations on AI frameworks to help countries build capacity to deploy this technology safely and effectively in schools. We must ensure that technological innovations drive inclusive and accessible education systems everywhere. Your Highness, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Doha Political Declaration adopted here provides fresh momentum in our efforts to end poverty, ensure full and productive employment and decent work, and social integration. Education is the most powerful tool we have to reach all of these goals, and indeed all of the Sustainable Development Goals. And it is a vital engine of transformation for countries, communities, and people everywhere. Together, let's put quality education into the hands of every learner and every community in the world, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General, for your powerful and inspiring remarks and for reminding us of the urgency of transforming education and aligning them with our shared goals of peace, inclusion, and sustainability. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we now turn to our high-level panel discussion where we'll explore how governments and global partners are putting this vision into practice, reimagining education as the foundation of a new social contract for the 21st century. I am honored to be joined by three distinguished heads of state who bring unique perspectives and leadership to this conversation. Please join me in welcoming to the stage His Excellency William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya. His Excellency Bajram Begaj, President of the Republic of Albania. And His Excellency Surangel Whips Jr., President of Palau. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. It's a great honor to have you in Doha at this historic summit in Qatar, the second World Social Summit for Development. Your Excellency William Ruto, if I can start with you, Kenya has been at the forefront of digital learning initiatives. What lessons do you think other nations can draw from your experience in linking education with technology and job creation? And how can developing countries balance this urgent need for digital transformation that the Secretary General talked about, with also the need to ensure that education remains accessible and inclusive for all?
Thank you very much. I think I'll respond to both issues in one. First, I agree entirely that education is an investment. It is not a cost. And therefore, being the greatest enabler, being the single most important, powerful tool for empowerment to communities, societies, and nations, every shilling and every dollar invested in education is a dollar put in the right direction. Balancing between education, technology, and jobs is your ask. Number one is you start with policy. Make sure that there is a link, a direct link between education, digital economy, and how that translates into jobs. Number two is empowering the teacher. In Kenya, for example, we've had to retrain 300,000 teachers and equip them with technological knowledge, not so that technology can replace teachers, but that technology enhances learning. And by empowering the teacher, by ensuring that the teacher is retrained, technology understands, benefits, internalizes, and understands technology, it becomes easier for there to be a connection between education and technology. And let me say that the most transformative thing we've done, for example, in Kenya, is to reform the whole education system so that we now are implementing a competence-based education and training, where learners, it's not just about what learners get to know, it is what they do with what they know. It's not just about exam passing, it is about competence, it's about innovation, it's about employability. And number three, it is not about getting a job. It is also about how to create jobs. So that whole system ensures that there is a link between education, technology, and jobs. And finally, technology helps us democratize education. I'll give you an example. In Kenya, Open University of Kenya, a university we started 2 years ago, now has 15,000 students from 70 countries learning 47 disciplines. We are estimating that in the next 2 years, it will be the largest university in Kenya. It is not only cost-effective, but it democratizes education. Students from different parts of the country, from different nationalities across the globe become students. So there is a direct link between education and how technology can democratize education. And let me say this finally, that from my experience, in the last 2 years, we have not only implemented a new reformed education system, actualized what we call the competence-based education and training. We have also closed the teacher gap. We have hired 100,000 teachers by January. We had a gap of 116,000 teachers. And we have enhanced the budget by close to $1 billion in the last 3 years. So we are very clear that to be able to balance and equalize the fortunes of all our children, education is the one that balances between the children of the poor and the children of the rich. And that is why we've changed the curriculum, we've hired more teachers, we're putting more money in education.
Thank you so much, President Ruto, for telling us about Kenya's experience. President Bagash, if I can come to you next, how do you see global partnerships, both North-South, but also South-South partnerships, helping ensure that education systems, including those in countries like Albania, prepare young people for the green and digital economies that President Ruto was talking about, those economies of the future?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. First, let me start by thanking Your Highness Sheikh Hamza for this excellent meeting and very right choice for the topic. Education is a cornerstone of our humanity and, of course, is a foundation of a new social contract of our world today. But for me, it is a backbone for our society. So never doubt to invest in education. If you invest $1 today in education, you'll get back much more tomorrow. So you cannot find that in other investment. As Secretary General said, that education is not a privilege, is a right, and is a right for everyone, and no one can be left behind. So we have to be fully responsible, and it's shared responsibility for us to provide access for everyone, to provide quality of education for everyone, and of course, to make a better society of tomorrow. Coming to your question, I think that North-South and South-South, our cooperation is very important, but on the other side, they are complementary. So I think that North-South can provide for those South countries expertise, can provide some access to the resources, and of course, we have nowadays the technology that the North can provide to the South. On the other side, South to South have a lot to communicate with each other. We have to learn from each other's experience, and of course, we have to share our knowledge. On the other side, both South and North can provide building capacities for our societies, can provide strengthening our institutions, and of course, we can provide better policies for our people. Coming to Albania example, I'm coming from a small country, and of course, President Ruto is coming more huge country, and for us it's very important to provide education, free education for everyone, and our policy for education is included and is fully aligned with SDGs that UN is providing, and of course fully aligned with the European Union education framework. So we provide education because in our society we think that when we speak with each other, we say that the information is power. But for me, education and knowledge empower peoples, provide much more information and more capable people for facing the challenges that we might have nowadays. And challenges are a lot, and we cannot face those challenges alone, so we have to be together. And speaking about education and technology, I think that the forefront to be changed and to change their attitude about the way how we learn is the teachers. They have much more responsibility for the future.
Thank you so much, President Bagash. Thank you for that. Excellency Whips, the President of Palau, if I can come to you finally. As a leader of a small island nation on the front lines of climate change, how do you see education shaping the renewed social contract that we're talking about here in Doha, one that empowers young people with the skills they need and the resilience they need to sustain their communities, but also their economies in the face of growing challenges linked to the environment and the economy around the world, the global challenges?
There is no doubt that education transforms lives. And Your Highness Chikamoza, being here in Education City, seeing really what this incredible place is an example of what we should be doing in all of our countries, making education a priority. I share this because I think back on my father's life. He was very poor and very young. He lost his parents. And when he lost his parents, one of the things that happened was he was taken out of school. He came back to school in 5th grade, struggled, was able to finally get a college degree, but it was so difficult for him. He tells me stories of him being hungry and going to class. So when I became president, one of the things that we thought was most important is how do we change our education system, focus on how we improve learning. Because we need more engineers to solve our problems. We talk about our challenges with climate change as small islands, but who are the people that are going to come up with the ideas? It's the kids that live with those challenges every day. So to do that, we said we need to change the way we think about education. We need to make sure that kids are excited about those institutions. They should be the best buildings in town. Kids should be excited about going to them. We said we need to make sure that they're not hungry. So they have free lunch, let's make sure they have free breakfast. When we offered the free breakfast, attendance went up, they showed up to school every day. It's the simple things. And then we said, well, one of the challenges we have, and I think all, is we have a lot of remote communities, small islands with not enough teachers. How do we get learning to those communities? The big towns were much better off than the outlying places. So we leveraged technology using the internet, thanks to COVID, forced us all to use Zoom, we discovered that now we could have remote high schools, have remote communities that only had 5 students in a classroom now have a high school, because that one student can stay there and go to high school being connected to the high school in the big town. So it's making those little changes to empower and give our kids opportunities to be able to unlock their potential. Because, you know, one of the things that my Minister of Education always says is every one of the children has a unique gift, and our responsibility is to unlock that gift. And I think that's really sometimes what we lack the ability to do, is unlock that potential.
Thank you very much, President Whips, for that. Before we end, perhaps just a final comment in a few seconds from each one of you. As we look ahead to implementing the Doha Political Declaration, President Ruto, what decisive step do you believe can make education the driving force of opportunity and inclusion?
We have so much agreed on what the declaration should look like. And that is the easier part. The more difficult part is to put money, action, and effort into getting every item of the declaration to reality. There are many kids out there who are not in class. I discovered in my own case that most of the students in the university came from the middle class. Children from difficult backgrounds, vulnerable families, they were most likely not in university. And that is why we changed the financing model for university. We came up with a student-centered model so that we get more children. We did affirmative action, more children from vulnerable backgrounds to access university education. And finally, we also discovered that people who live in informal settlements, in rural areas, did not have laboratories, did not have adequate classrooms. And as a result, we rolled out a program to do another 23,000 classrooms, 1,600 laboratories, especially in neighborhoods that were vulnerable. So again, targeted affirmative action in areas that are challenged, unnecessary, and therefore associating with what has been said in the declaration is something that we need to match what we have agreed with action.
Targeted affirmative action. Thank you so much, President Ruto. President Begaj, your final thoughts. What decisive action do we need to take after this Doha Political Declaration to make sure that education is indeed the driving force of opportunity and inclusion for all?
I think we have to do more. Instead of making those nice speeches everywhere, we have to do actions much more. So I think people deserve that, and based on SDGs, that no one can be left behind. Everyone has the right to have education, and we have to work about that and to get in action.
Thank you very much, President Begaj. President Whips, you have the final word. What decisive action should we be taking after Doha?
Well, I think we need to start by really putting those action into words, and Secretary General Gutierrez reminded us that if we're not spending 15% of our budget on education or 4% of our GDP, then we're not really serious about it. So we need to go home. We need to make sure as leaders that that is a minimum, and we need to take action, because every dollar spent on our children is an investment that will return billions back into our nation. So,
thank you very much, President Whips. Thank you, Your Excellencies, for your rich insights and for your contributions. We've heard today something that is clear, and that is education must not stand apart from social development. It must drive it. May the commitments voiced here in Doha translate into concrete action, into classrooms around the world and policies across the globe. Thank you all very much once again for joining us, and thank you for all of you.